Chuck Pagano, after 28 years of collegiate and NFL experience, has his first head job at the age of 51, while Mike Tomlin across the sidelines has already led the Steelers to 2 Super Bowls, winning 1 of them. So it's Pat McAfee kicking off for the Indianapolis Colts, and Chris Rainey, who was back deep for the Steelers, watches it go over his head, and out come the Steelers at the 20. Where Ben Roethlisberger, who turned 30 years old in March, has been to 3 Super Bowls, winning 2, brings them out. Steelers' first 2 picks of the draft, offensive linemen. As you look at Jonathan Dwyer in the backfield, he'll see a lot of action in a running back depleted Steelers backfield. Heath Miller at tight end. Antonio Brown just has a new 5-year contract, and there is David DeCastro, the rookie out of Stanford, who was protecting Luck last year, 6'5", 316-pound rookie. And so Roethlisberger giving it to Dwyer, who just gets it past the line of scrimmage for a gain of 2, brought down by Antoine Bethea.
So many things to watch here on this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Of course, this new look offense last week on their opening drive, the only play that Todd Haley produced with his first stringers out there. They go 63 yards and kick a field goal. You know, in the days when you had Rashard Mendenhall healthy and Mike Wallace in camp, sometimes it didn't take so long, but that did take some pressure off of Ben Roethlisberger.
Todd Haley, the head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs for the better part of the last 3 seasons. And here is Dwyer again, who's going to get a lot of work tonight with Rashard Mendenhall still out. Isaac Redman, his backup, still nursing a groin.
Well, Robert Mathis right here playing in a new style of defense. If you've seen the Colts over the years, you know those are their 2 outside pass rushers. Now they're in a 34, now playing outside linebacker, having to take on fullbacks and play the run and drop into coverage, and they're all excited about it. They feel good about it, but let's face it, it's been a long time where all they did was just come after the likes of Ben Roethlisberger's of the league.
So on 1st and 10, ball just across the 30. They bring it around to Chris Rainey, and he has been the talk of camp, but he fumbles the ball. The Steelers got it back, it appeared, as Gerard Powers separated the football. Emmanuel Sanders recovers it, but Rainey was popped by Powers, and the ball was loose.
Well, clearly a new look here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, having a kind of speed in the backfield that Chris Rainey can bring. He is a smaller guy, though, and certainly with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to have to prove that you're going to be able to handle the football, and that doesn't fly around here. Of course, the last week took a spring.
So Rainey down on the field, and we'll be back to Heinz Field in a moment. Beautiful night in Pittsburgh. Preseason home opener for the Steelers. As we went to break, Rainey was on the turf, but he has since gotten up, but took a huge hit by Powers. And the Steelers already thin at the running back position, as this is Jonathan Dwyer with the carry. We mentioned Redman and Mendenhall. They also had David Johnson, lost for the season, a fullback in the preseason opener last week, Chris. And Mendenhall taken off the PUP list, but still he's not going to be ready to go for a little bit. And you see all those 0 carries for the guys behind him.
Rashard Mendenhall there, who, you know, this is such an explosive offense when they have all their weapons here. You know, Mike Wallace, the guy that can take the top off the defense, the deep threat. Rashard Mendenhall, so much speed at the running back position. You mix in maybe a little Chris Rainey into that offense. Could be a lot of very positive, explosive things. And there's Corey Redding. So we get yet another injury here. Of course, came over from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, one of 3 Raven defensive players that Chuck Pagano, who was the Ravens defensive coordinator the last 4 seasons, brought over. Starter for the Ravens. So Ricardo Matthews, number 91, is in for him. And there's another one of the Ravens, Tom Zibikowski, at the strong safety position. Also Brandon McKinney, a backup defenseman, also brought in by Pagano. 2nd and 6. Dwyer, not much at all. As we set the Colts defense in the transition from 4-3 to 3-4. Moala, Johnson, and Redding, who was just taken off the field up front. And there is Freeney and Mathis again as linebackers. Their style has changed so much. We'll talk more about that as the night goes on. And there is Zibikowski now a part of that secondary, along with Powers, Bethea, and Justin King, the former Ram. 3rd and 6. Roethlisberger's picked off by Bethea. The 2-time Pro Bowler steps in front and gets the first turnover of the night.
I'm not sure exactly what Ben saw there, but Thea's going to come out of the middle of the field right here and just undercut this thing. No problem at all for him, and the ball looked like it either slipped coming out of his hands, because I'm not sure it would have been close at all.
So when we come back, Andrew Luck on the field for the Colts as Roethlisberger throws the pick. Well, the words of his coach Pagano last week, he said you probably couldn't have scripted it any better for Andrew Luck in his debut. He's got his mom, Kathy, his dad, Oliver Luck, former backup for the Houston Oilers here. He made the drive, just an hour drive from West Virginia, where he serves as the athletic director, and his son in great position here at the 43, threw a touchdown in his first pass last week. This not exactly stellar.
Well, we had a little screen pass. They're going to fake the reverse coming around to Reggie Wayne and then throw him a little screen or flare pass out here. You see the lineman out in front. There's nothing there, and Andrew Luck, like he did last week when it wasn't there, like an old pro, just threw it in the ground and said, we'll go get the next one.
Very first pass by Luck last week was a 63-yard scoring toss to Donald Brown out of the backfield. So 2nd down and 10. And they fake it to Brown, and Luck goes to the right, and it's complete to Dwayne Allen, who's inside the 40. As we set the Colts offense, Donald Brown, leading rusher for the last 2 years in there. Joseph Adai has departed. Kobe Fleener was Luck's target at Stanford. And then you've got Samson Satelli, who replaces Jeff Saturday, Peyton Manning's longtime center, part of a new revamped Colt offensive line up front. Seth Olson getting the start for Mike McGlynn, another one of those newcomers, but hurt tonight. So on 3rd and 5, Luck is set up at the 38. And from the shotgun, the quick throw to Brown, incomplete. And that'll bring up 4th and 5. Ryan Clark on the coverage for the Steelers.
Well, Dick LeBeau's not going to hold anything back. He's going right to his zone blitz package, and really the Colts were hoping that they would get that, get the drop here, and then start bringing people off the edges here. But they've been working on this all week, and they know if Luck is going to be ready for the opener, he's got to be able to handle those blitzes.
So with a good field position, Colts still with a punt. Marquise Mays lets it soar over his head and into the end zone, where the Steelers will take another try at their 20 after an early Ben Roethlisberger pick. Andrew Luck and the Colts were scoreless. Most starting offensive line combinations last year. Steelers led the way, Chris, with 9.
Got a little different combination out there tonight, too, we'll get into.
Baron Batch in the backfield behind Roethlisberger. Brushed off what he called was rust last week in the opener against the Eagles, and he's popped by Cavell Connor, number 53.
Well, so many changes up front, and the hope is that eventually the draft choices are going to make this a better offensive line. David DeCastro, 66, comes in there at right guard, and they want Mike Adams to be the left tackle, but didn't have such a good debut. Gave up a couple of sacks playing left tackle, got hurt in the game, so they flipped the right tackle, Marcus Gilbert, over there to play tonight.
So on 2nd and 8, they fake it to Batch, and Roethlisberger runs it close to the 25-yard line.
Well, Dwight Freeney, that looks like a familiar position with his hand down, but he sees Gilbert blocked down. He's going to cram it down inside, and Ben pulls it out and around. Freeney was pretty entertaining, talking about all the new things he's being asked to do this year and how wide receivers feel like they're intimidating to him anymore because he doesn't know what they do.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to have my hand down. It's not going to be like I'm not going to do it my way in this new defense for the Colts.
Ball start. Offense. Number 77. 5-yard penalty. Still third down.
Movement by Marcus Gilbert as the NFL regular referees are locked out. So these are NFL replacement officials. And who knows when we're going to see the regular NFL officials. A lot of people speculating that it could be at least a few weeks into the regular season, but we'll see. 3rd and 11 after the penalty and movement up front. And Roethlisberger with plenty of time slings it out to the sideline and complete to Antonio Brown with that new 5-year contract extension worth some $42 million through the year 2017. Handsomely rewarded, and that was an 18-yard gain.
Yeah, and he deserves it. It's going to come with a little flag over the top route here. Antonio Brown, the first player in NFL history with 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards in return. And for Dwight Freeney, still the same old, 2 tight ends on him on the other side.
On 1st and 10, Batch gets the carry, and worth noting that there is still no Mike Wallace for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has been a holdout, has been working out down in Florida. And we expect, in fact, I've been told that Wallace is going to be back this week. But that's not the way the Steelers negotiate. If you're going to negotiate, they got to see you. You got to be here, right? The old Steeler way.
I asked Tomlin if he'd talked to him yet. He said, I don't talk to him until they get here.
2nd and 7. Roethlisberger looks right, goes across the middle, and it's complete to Leonard Pope. Big 6'8", 264-pound free agent in his 7th year out of Georgia. Let's go down to Michelle.
Well, a couple injury notes for you. Steelers running back Chris Rainey. He is in the locker room. He got that hit on the Steelers opening drive. As you mentioned, he's being evaluated for a possible concussion. Meanwhile, Colts defensive end Corey Redding, he left the field on a cart. He's getting further evaluation in the locker room on his right knee.
Roethlisberger spins it out to Brown, and he's got another big gain. Good cut. And Brown is going to go the distance. 57 yards for the newly signed Brown.
Well, now you know why he got all the cash. Outside, he's got his 2 tight ends inside, throwing the blocks. Really have everybody outflanked as long as those tight ends make the block. And then the punt returner in him came out. Voted MVP by his teammates a season ago. And it's easy to see why. Boy, nice block down the field by Baron Batch as well.
So on 3rd and 4, Antonio Brown with a big one. And Sean Sweesom in to make it 7-0 Pittsburgh. Midway point of the first quarter, Steelers start out with an interception. But then on 3rd down, Roethlisberger hits Antonio Brown to give Pittsburgh a 7-0 lead. Well, we mentioned how the Colts hit the reset button. Jim Caldwell out as the head coach. Bill Polian, the president, gone. And this was just a mass exodus by Indianapolis Colts players. They lost 10 players who were regular starters. Joseph Adai, Dallas Clark, Pierre Garcon, Jeff Saturday, and on the list goes.
Yeah, and a handful of guys still around, and I think they were almost surprised that they were. Guys like, Reggie Wayne, who thought that he'd probably be one of the guys gone too, but brought back.
So Sweeson kicks it off. Pittsburgh with a 7-0 lead, and out comes Levon Brazil, 6th-round draft pick out of Ohio, who takes it out just across the 20.
There's Reggie Wayne. He coming out, and really unusual for him during the Peyton Manning era because they went so much no huddle. He just stayed on the left side of the field and never came out, never changed positions. Now he's in motion. He's almost playing under Bruce Arians' offense, the old Hines Ward role. He's blocking defensive ends. He said it's a whole new thing for me out here. You'll see him here on the end of the line of scrimmage. He might be taking on a linebacker or something.
Yeah, in the slot, Reggie said his whole career has been rejuvenated. He's excited about it, and in motion he goes. Sets on the left side as they give it to Donald Brown. But you saw all those players that left, Chris, and Reggie Wayne was like, it's almost like losing some family members. He's one of the only guys to stick around.
Yeah, they stay in touch, and there goes Reggie Wayne, and now watch him. He's just going to come off he's the third tight end. You know, that's what made Hines Ward such a great player for so long, it was like having 2 or 3 tight ends on the field because of the way that he could block. You never think of Reggie Wayne as this big blocking wide receiver, but here he is on the end of the line of scrimmage again, so we'll see what they're going to have him do.
Yeah, Wayne signed a 3-year, $17.5 million contract in March. One of the few iconic Colts to stick around. Luck to the air, and it's complete to Austin Collie for a first down.
How about that throw? You give this young man, Andrew Luck, a little time, and he'll pick you apart. On the outside, Austin Collie back and healthy again. Had those concussion issues and such a major factor. Let's see if Andrew Luck drills it in there. Does he hang on to this one?
So just across the 40 at the 42 after a gain of 19. And now we have a challenge on the catch by Collie. There it is.
Yeah, you couldn't see it quite as well from that angle, but the first one looked like it may have come out. Just tried to turn up a little too soon. Knee was down.
Pittsburgh is challenging the last play of a completed catch.
So a challenge from Tomlin. Will be right back to Heinz Field, see how it works out. So the first challenge of the night, Mike Tomlin challenging the catch made by Austin Collie. By the way, he has been helped off the field after taking a nasty hit by Larry Foote here.
Yeah, and a much bigger issue here with Austin Collie, who has had the history of concussions and takes a big shot. Nothing dirty about it, just going in to make a play, but there was a forearm to the head, and we'll keep an eye on him and certainly give you a report as soon as we can.
Upon further review, the play is reversed. It is an incomplete pass. It will be third down.
And there goes Austin Collie to be checked out.
5-3.
So Tomlin wins the challenge, and back it comes.
Well, the Colts and Reggie Wayne felt like that they had as good a receiving core as they've had since he's been here, which is a remarkable statement in my estimation, because this team won 1 Super Bowl and went to 2, but they really feel like they've got a lot of talent on the outside. There's Levon Brazil and young Chris Adams out there, T.Y. Hilton. So we'll get a chance to see them now.
And Reggie Wayne calls them the Smurfs. Not very big. So the ball all the way back to the 24, 3rd and 6. And Luck delivers it right on the money to Brazil. Keenan Lewis on the coverage for Pittsburgh, but not before a first down pickup.
Yeah, and what's impressive about this is Pittsburgh's going to come with the blitz, but Luck knows he's got it picked up. So instead of panicking like so many young quarterbacks will do, he stands in, delivers the ball, and picks up the first down. Pretty catch on the outside by Brazil.
So the ball all the way up to the 35-yard line. And Luck with a give to Donald Brown, and not much there at all. Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in his 54th year in the NFL. 14 as a player, the rest as a coach, Hall of Famer. And he goes back to your playing days.
Yeah, he was our coach in Cincinnati for a couple of Super Bowl tries as well, but so well respected. Ho-hum, had the #1 ranked defense again last year, and all they can talk about was they didn't get enough turnovers and big splash plays.
Still going strong at age 74. 2nd and 9 after the gain by 1. Ball is knocked away, intended for Wayne. Chris Carter, who's the guy filling in for the injured James Harrison at the outside linebacking position on the coverage, knocking it down.
It looked like Chris Carter had a pretty good hold on him here as he tried to break inside, and I think that's what Reggie Wayne was trying to say as well, but to no avail.
Third and long.
More pressure coming, I'm sure.
Now movement early on the left side. It looked like Anthony Costanzo.
False start. Offense. Number 74. 5-yard penalty. Still 3rd down.
The Colts' top draft pick from a year ago.
I have no idea what the actual numbers are, but I'm going to guess the Pittsburgh Steelers draw a lot of false starts on offenses. You know, when you get those 7 or 8 mad pass rushers at the line of scrimmage and they're all flinching and jumping around, and Troy Polamalu's coming up there and you're trying to figure out who to block, it's easy to forget the snap count.
Well, it was an easy win for Luck and the Colts last week, 38-3 over the Rams, and we talked about it. It was going to be a much tougher test for Luck with his Steelers defense. On 3rd and 14, across the middle, incomplete. And the Colts will have to punt it away, intended for T.Y. Hilton. Cortez Allen, who's trying to win a cornerback position in the Steelers secondary on the coverage.
Here we go. T.Y. Hilton's going to be matched up here in the slot. This is where, if you're going to make it as a slot receiver, you have to win. And you can see the Steelers defensive backs are getting a little grabby out there and getting away with it.
So the punt by McAfee. Marquise Mays at the 13. Puts on a couple of moves before he's knocked down at about the 17-yard line. Well, we talked about all the changes on the Indianapolis Colts side. What about the Steelers and all of the changes they have made? Hines Ward retiring. Weldy Moore now a Colt. James Ferrier retired as well. William Gay from the secondary has moved on. So big changes for Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing you worry about most in that situation is, will there be a void in leadership? And there really isn't. What you find in this league is that as the older guys go out, it gives a chance for guys like Ben Roethlisberger and some of his mates to take over that leadership role.
Well, Freeney and Mathis out of the Colts defense. Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes are in it, and that was a nice juggling act by Rainey, who got knocked down hard earlier. As we check in again with Michelle.
Oh, one of the reasons Robert Mathis is not on the field is he's out for the rest of the night, Dan, with a shoulder strain. And meanwhile, Austin Collie, who took that hit by Larry Foote, he is in the locker room. I'm told he had complained to trainers. We just don't know what he complained about, but they have taken him to the locker room for further evaluation. And as soon as we have more information, we'll let you know.
Thank you, Michelle. 2nd and 10. Roethlisberger telling us that the terminology by the new coordinator, Haley, totally different. It's been a learning experience for him. And he just slings this out to the sideline, incomplete. Chris Rainey in the vicinity, but it'll bring up 3rd down.
Yeah, and there's something you wouldn't see from the Colts a lot in the past, and that's beginning to bring some pressure of their own. You know, this 34 defense allows a lot of different people to get around the line of scrimmage. And again, just like the Steelers now, you don't know who it is that's going to be coming. That time, good pressure on the outside, but Roethlisberger doing what he always does. Addison on the outside, Mario Addison getting some pressure on the outside, but it's Ben Roethlisberger and what he does best, which is buy time under pressure to allow those receivers to shake loose.
And it's something that Steeler fans and front office here want to kind of take care of Ben a little bit better. Obviously, Roethlisberger has taken so many sacks through the years, 314 times in 114 career regular season games. He just says, that's the way I play. I don't feel a play is ever over. And he'll oftentimes take some chances to try to make that completion.
Yeah, they want those tight ends and running backs more involved on early downs. They want screens to all 5 eligible players. Get it out of his hands.
Drew Butler continues to handle the punting duties for Pittsburgh, with Jeremy Kapanos recovering from back surgery, as Hilton lets it come to rest at about the 36-yard line. Andrew Luck, top pick in the NFL, born in Washington, D.C., there with his dad Oliver, who was a longtime backup for Warren Moon and the Houston Oilers, so he grew up in a football family. Valedictorian at his high school in Texas. Ranks first-time all-time touchdown passes at Stanford. There's been some great quarterbacking greats. And the 4th Stanford quarterback selected #1 in NFL history. And we look forward to your conversation with Andrew Luck at halftime. Vic Ballard, the lone setback now for the Colts. A guy that we knew would see a lot of action. 5th-round draft pick out of Mississippi State.
Yeah, you're talking about Andrew Luck, and here's a kid that, it's not the classic path to the NFL. He grew up in Germany and London and spoke German, went to an all-German speaking kindergarten. His dad, of course, played in the NFL, but it's a guy that just seems mature beyond his years. And when you talk to the coaches about him, you say he literally almost has a photographic memory. You tell him something 3 months prior and it comes up again. He says, oh yeah, that's when you told me that one day out there. And it's remarkable how fast he's able to learn this offense.
And the handoff, Steelers were coming hard. Vic Ballard to stop, but Luck, coming a coach's delight. Grew up in a football family like we talked about. So many comparisons to Peyton Manning. Those are inevitable. That's the guy he's taking over from here. And remember that Peyton Manning went 3-13 in his rookie year, until eventually leading the Colts to a Super Bowl. And on 3rd and 10, Luck goes to the air, and that is picked off. Stepping right in front is Ike Taylor, who goes the distance. And Steeler fans remember seeing Demaryius Thomas in overtime in that 80-yard touchdown, and Ike Taylor giving chase to him. Well, Luck just put it right out in front for Ike Taylor to take it the distance.
Yeah, I don't think Dick LeBeau is speaking in English or German for Andrew Luck right now. I think he has him a little bit confused. He looks calm out there, but they got him on that one.
49-yard interception return for a touchdown for Ike Taylor. Luck's first NFL interception, albeit the preseason.
The old amoeba defense, only one defensive lineman down, everybody else walking around. Protection tough here, but the offensive line and backs do a nice job picking this one up. But as Andrew Luck releases it for the veteran Reggie Wayne, he just stares him down and drills it to Ike Taylor. I mean, there's no way he didn't see him. I just think that mentally your brain is going through the gymnastics of what's happening in front of you, and are these guys really picking it up? Last week he was under some pressure and had to scramble out, so he really wanted to hang in there. Yeah, there's Oliver Luck. He said, yeah, I threw a few of those down in Houston myself. But this is the kind of education. Talking to Clyde Christensen, the offensive quarterback coach, he said, I hope Dick LeBeau throws everything at Andrew Luck, because this guy learns in a hurry. Well, he got taken to school on that one. The old master.
So 14-0 Pittsburgh. Just under 3 minutes left in the opening quarter. And Sweezum to kick off for Levon Brazil. 6th-round draft pick out of Ohio. Awaiting a low driving kick by Sweezum. And it gets by Brazil, and the Colts will come back out and try it again at the 20. So, Chris, this can't be any more different of a game for Luck than it was last week in the opener against the Eagles, where he could do no wrong in that 38-3 win.
Yeah, a little different set of circumstances. A, you're on the road. B, you're playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And C, they're getting exactly what they want to get. You know, there's a reason why rookies don't win Super Bowls very often. You know, Ben did, I guess. But, you know, he had a great team around him. And it's the process, you know, veteran players. Ike Taylor got him on the back end. Dick LeBeau got him with the scheme. And you got to start all over again.
There's Reggie Wayne, speaking of starting all over again. In motion, Luck feels the pressure from his right side, and down he goes as Lamar Woodley came off the edge to drop him.
Well, this is either a naked bootleg or good luck Andrew. Comes out around, and they're going to leave one of the best pass rushers in the NFL and Lamar Woodley unblocked. Now, sometimes they do that, and they think that Woodley's going to come and chase the run down the line. That time he had his sights on number 12.
2nd and 15. And across the middle to Wayne. Wayne dropped short of the 25-yard line. Larry Foote on the stop.
Just a way to get their quarterback's feet back on the ground. Little simple in cut inside. Let's get him a completion, get him calmed down a little bit. But, you know, this is without even James Harrison out there. And we know that when they get Woodley and Harrison on the field, it's pretty electric. That only happened 5 times last year that they started games together.
So from the 24 on 3rd and 6, Luck to the air again, complete, and getting the first down is Dwayne Allen and more. So a little positive direction going now for Luck after taking some heat.
Yeah, you heard a lot about Kobe Fleener, the teammate of Andrew Luck. But it is this guy that is really beginning to make a difference for the football team in Dwayne Allen, because he can play that move position. He can be the old David Johnson position of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Block as a fullback, come out of the backfield. And a lot of people had him rated higher than Kobe Fleener, who was taken a round earlier.
He won the Mackey Award given to the nation's best tight end. Luck on the scramble, and this one is complete just into Steeler territory for another first down. Reggie Wayne.
Now that's Andrew Luck doing what we saw last week. Not only is he big and strong, but he is an athletic young man. Watch this throw as he steps up through the blitz, throws across his body, and makes an accurate throw. Those are the kinds of things that really separate him. You don't think of what he can do physically, but about a 4.7 runner in the 40-yard dash. A big guy like Ben can escape and still make plays with that second look.
So the Colts offense suddenly in gear, and Luck, cool under pressure, hits his tight end from Stanford, Fleener, for another first down. And that brings us to the end of the first quarter after a 24-yard gain to his Cardinal tight end Fleener. As Ryan Clark banged up for the Steelers. End of the first quarter. Pittsburgh 14-0. NBC Sunday Night Football continues. Since 2004, the NFL has kicked off the season with the Super Bowl champions in prime time. We'll do it again coming up on September 5th. And through the years, we've seen some great moments in the Super Bowl and some great matchups with the defending champions. Wednesday night, September 5th, the Giants will do it for the second time as they host their NFC East rival, the Dallas Cowboys, against Wednesday night, September 5th on NBC.
Always a great night. A lot of fun to be a part of. Pittsburgh Steelers have had a few of those nights themselves.
And no one has won more Super Bowl titles than the Steelers with 6. Luck with a nice comeback here after getting knocked around all the way down to the Steeler 25 with a 1st and 10. And Donald Brown has the carry. Ziggy Hood up front there for Pittsburgh makes the stop.
Well, one thing that Coby Fleener is going to have to learn in this league is that you've got to be more than just a receiver. Made a nice catch down the field, but now coming across in motion here, he's got to be able to play a little fullback in this sort of a set as well. Sort of sits and catches and gets driven back into the backfield.
So not even a gain of 1. Wayne again in motion. And they give it to Brown. Looking for 1st down yardage down the sideline. And inside the 5-yard line. 1st and goal for Indianapolis.
And this is what Coby Fleener is going to have to be able to do. A little bit more of a position kind of block. Turn out, just use his athleticism here to create a little bit of a hole. He's not going to be an overpowering guy, but sets the edge there for Donald Brown, who, as he did last week, comes out with a big play. This is a nice drive down the field by Andrew Luck after a couple of disastrous drives.
So from the 3, Luck floats it up in the end zone. It was intended for T.Y. Hilton. Ike Taylor, who had the big interception return for the touchdown earlier, was on Hilton. Just 5'9", 183-pound rookie from Florida International. One of those speedsters we were talking about earlier.
It's always so interesting for me to watch Troy Polamalu down here on the goal line. You just don't know what he's going to do, but generally he's either jumping over the pile or creating a headache for somebody. Pick him out here.
7-time Pro Bowler. On 2nd and goal. Donald Brown with a carry, and that was Polamalu coming in to get him.
He did. You just cannot account for where he's going to be. You're going to come right around the edge here. You don't block that guy. There's no way that guy gets to the play. There he is running down the back in the backfield. He destroys more goal line plays than any safety that plays the game.
And just is given carte blanche to just interpret how things are going out there, feel the defense, and make great plays. 3rd and goal now. And into the end zone is Donald Brown. So a good comeback for Andrew Luck and the Colts, who march it all the way down to get on the board for the first time.
It's a nice double team block here by Justin and Fleener. They're going to come down and then get up on the next level. And I tell you, that's the kind of thing. When I was talking to Bruce Arians about this offense, he said, I think we have a better offensive line right now with the Colts than what we had in Pittsburgh. So he feels pretty good about this bunch.
Adam Vinatieri in his 17th year punches it through for the Colts to make it 14-7. 10-play, 80-yard touchdown drive by Luck and the Colts. Just into the 2nd quarter, and coming out is Chris Rainey bringing it out for Pittsburgh, and Ben Roethlisberger. We mentioned how many times Roethlisberger has been sacked in his career. These are the numbers since 06, 262 times, nearly 100 more than the 2nd most.
Yeah, it's remarkable, especially when you consider some of the numbers, the fewest dropbacks per sack. He's at the top of that list as well. But it's his game. You know, what separates him from other quarterbacks is his ability to buy time. You know, most quarterbacks have to get rid of it in 3 seconds. A lot of times he'll be holding the football 6 seconds later, and the defensive backs, there's no way that they can possibly cover that long. That's been the reason he's had such a great winning percentage.
Roethlisberger from the 19, hands off to Dwyer. Maybe gets a yard or two before Zibikowski and some other Colts are there to get him.
Yeah, and you know, when you take it a step further now, there's Chuck Pagano, but Bruce Arians now his offensive coordinator, but that was the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator and good friend of Ben Roethlisberger, and it was a very emotional thing when Arians got fired, and Roethlisberger wasn't too happy, and there was a lot of questions. How would he get along with Todd Haley, who is a much more emotional guy on the sideline, much more likely to get in Roethlisberger's face? And a lot of people think that's part of the reason he was brought here, because they wanted Roethlisberger to be a little more disciplined.
Roethlisberger actually had a chat with Haley early on as that one's knocked away, intended for Antonio Brown. Gerard Powers on the coverage. Roethlisberger pretty much said, you know, we got to calm down here. We got to be able to communicate. We got to be able to talk. And speaking of that, there was Roethlisberger and Haley earlier. So this is going to take a while, you know, for this Roethlisberger and Todd Haley combination to click.
Well, he's learned how to talk anyway. He's talking to everybody over there.
Hey, I'm going gun. Monday, gun.
Oh, did you hear that? Quietly saying, I'm going gun. Don't snap the ball. Don't. This isn't Hut. I'm going shotgun.
And here comes the blitz. Roethlisberger evading it and throwing it away downfield.
That's it. That's exactly what Roethlisberger does to kill people. He comes with a safety blitz. Got Bethea coming out of the middle. So what does he do? He's just going to scramble out. There's no way he's escaping this, right? Now he does. 5, 6, 7. Many times that turns into a touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers because the defensive backs break down.
So Drew Butler to punt it away again for Pittsburgh, the son of Kevin Butler, the longtime place kicker for the Bears. And this is T.Y. Hilton putting on a move and getting it across the 40. So good field position for the Indianapolis Colts, who are on the board but trail the Steelers 14-7. Beautiful night in Pittsburgh. Steelers up 14-7, 11:51 left in the opening half. Steelers preseason home opener. And Andrew Luck with another chance here at the Colts 41. We were told by Chuck Pagano that he and the first team offensive unit would play the first half. And Luck sends it out to his tight end again, Flainer. Ryan Clark on the coverage. Let's check back in with Michelle.
Well, the Colts and Andrew Luck are down a wide receiver. Austin Collie will not return to the game. He remains in the locker room being evaluated for symptoms of a concussion. Remember, his 2010 season was ended early due to concussions. Meanwhile, defensive end Corey Redding also will not return because of a strained right knee, Dan.
Thank you, Michelle. So 2nd and 10 for the Colts. And up the middle is Ballard, still on his feet. Nice run by Ballard for first down yardage. And a good block leading the way by Seth Olson after a gain of 12.
Bruce Arians really likes this Vic Ballard. I think he's going to play a major factor in the offense already this year. Rookie, just a 5th round draft choice, but he showed this last week as well. His ability to break some tackles and a little burst on the outside. It's he's a good looking back that does a nice job in protection as well.
And again with Mewelde Moore and DeLon Carter out of the lineup at running back for the Colts, both nursing rib injuries. Ballard getting some time. Luck swings it out to Wayne. Ike Taylor brings him down.
You know, Andrew Luck didn't start off so well in this game. Ends up coming out early and throwing the pick 6 to Ike Taylor. And okay, now how are you going to react, rookie? Well, watch the way he steps up on a couple of these throws. Throw across his body, get the completion there, boldly step into this defense again, kept his eyes down the field. That's good. You know, I mean, you're going to make mistakes as a rookie. The question is, how do your teammates see you react?
2nd and 7. Ballard up the middle for no gain. And again, that's the true measure. There's so much pressure, Chris, that goes on the shoulders of a #1 draft pick. And again, when you've got all the publicity, pre-draft publicity for Andrew Luck, And even though the Colts told us that it was a very impressive interview with Robert Griffin, the third RG3 as well. He went back-to-back in the interviews and was very impressed with RG3, who's obviously with the Washington Redskins. But by all accounts, everybody expecting Luck to succeed at this level, and many think right away. See how the whole offensive pieces come together for him in his rookie year. That's a strike, but it's now out of the arms of T.Y. Hilton, who had it, and now Cortez Allen has it for the Steelers. Hilton had it, lost it. And Allen, who's fighting for a position, starting cornerback position, picks off Luck. Hilton had it, juggles it, Allen with a pick.
Another interception for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got a little lucky on that one, though. They made a mistake. Going to have the blitz here. These two guys are both going to take the crosser, and nobody takes T.Y. Hilton down the field. A lot of veteran players out there for the Steelers, and they just release Hilton, and they get the juggling act. And Cortez Allen, who's battling Keenan Lewis for one of the cornerback jobs, is the beneficiary of it.
And a new quarterback in for the Steelers. Roethlisberger out, and Charlie Batch, 37 years old, and at quarterback is Roethlisberger's backup tonight. And Jonathan Dwyer breaks loose into Colt territory, but they finally brought him down, but not before a huge gain for Dwyer.
Sometimes you end up trying to crash inside on a run, and you end up on the wrong side of those linemen, and all of a sudden there's a big gap running down the field. And so far, Jonathan Dwyer, despite the bad shoulder, got hurt a little bit last week.
And Mike Adams in there, the second-round draft pick for the Steelers, who got hurt last week. As Batch rolls out to his right, and this is complete to Leonard Pope. Well, we mentioned that the Steelers, with their first two picks of the draft, go with David DeCastro, #1, and Mike Adams, #2 from Ohio State. He allowed a couple of sacks last week before he injured his knee, and we were wondering if he was going to see action this week, but he's back.
Yeah, the thing you want to do, you give up a couple of sacks in about 10 plays. You need to get back out on the field if you're a rookie, and those Philadelphia Eagles speed rushers on the outside got him pretty good.
2nd and 4. Dwyer with a little dancing before Jerry Hughes brings him down. Here's your guy you're talking about last week, Adams. Not a great debut against the Eagles.
Well, and they're not afraid of what they saw. Did he look bad? Yes, he looked bad. But all week long, he had been blocking Brett Kiesel in their 34 defense, and all of a sudden, here come these screaming maniacs of the Eagles about 5 yards wide coming at him. He'd probably never seen anything like that in the Big Ten, and they were just running by him. They feel pretty good about him, though.
Yeah, the Steeler coaches weren't alarmed by what happened.
They might be alarmed by that one. He got inside on that one. It's like Mario Addison again is going to get inside, and you can't give the direct path to the quarterback. You have to make that a one-way shot. If he's going to go get Charlie Batch, you have to make him go out and around.
So on 4th and 4, Butler into punt on Batch's first series at quarterback for Pittsburgh. And that one lands in the end zone. So Indianapolis will come out 1st and 10 from the 20. Trailing 14-7. Night of work over for Roethlisberger. Andrew Luck continuing at the controls for the Colts, slinging it out to T.Y. Hilton, who grabs a little extra yardage up the sideline.
Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a little changing of the guard, if you will, along that defensive front. And Steve McClendon been playing the nose tackle for Casey Hampton, who had the knee injury, and Hampton just came off the PUP list. But McClendon is one of those guys that they feel almost startled by. He came in here at about 280 pounds. They didn't think much of him, and all of a sudden, every year he's put on 10 pounds of muscle, and now they're not sure, even if Casey Hampton's back, that he would get his starting job back. As far as the game against the Eagles a week ago, I don't think anybody defensively played better than Steve McClendon did.
Yeah, he's been one of the stars and the talk of camp, McClendon.
Got a sack of Mike Vick. How many nose tackles in the world have ever got a sack of Mike Vick? A one-handed sack at that.
Tomlin says he's gained 10 pounds of muscle each year he's been here. So now at about 320, McClendon could be muscling his way into a starting role up front for the Steelers. As it was a nice run by Ballard across the 35. Picks up the first down by the Colts.
Timeout on the field. Indianapolis.
As the timeout is called by Indy.
You ever play fantasy football?
Used to. A little bit too busy to be totally into it now.
Yeah, I used to.
It takes some time.
It does.
You got to pay attention.
I played against my kids, and you know, since I'm the football guy and I do all this stuff for a full-time basis, I'd let them have all the first picks, and I just got drilled. I was getting beat by 30 points every week. It's a lot of fun, though.
Luck with a quick snap to Fleener. And again, very familiar combination. Played with Luck at Stanford, caught 96 passes in his career at Stanford. This was a fast trigger.
Yeah, and what Andrew Luck shows here is that he understands when he's protected and when he's not. Here Chris Carter comes on a blitz. He did not have it picked up. His protection was sliding the other way. Had to throw hot. Kobe Fleener understood that. Andrew Luck. Both rookies got it done. Now they have a 2nd and 2.
From the 45, another quick pass out to Reggie Wayne in the flat. Keenan Lewis on the coverage. Luck and Fleener, teammates at Stanford, and pretty rare as you look at the draft choices. Their first team to draft quarterback and wide receiver tight end from the same school with the first 2 picks in an AFL or NFL draft since 1967. So all the pressure that comes along with being the #1 pick. Pretty nice to have your old pal Fleener out there to go to.
And David DeCastro, a top 40 pick on the other side for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
On 1st and 10, beautiful pass to Wayne. Just over the outstretched arms of the Pittsburgh defense there. Just got it over Sean Spence. Gain of 27 for the veteran Wayne.
Very unusual. See Reggie Wayne in motion, even lining up on the right side. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the motion messed them up a little bit. Man coverage by the corner on the outside. And that left Sean Spence in space. But nice job by Luck, just sort of drifting it in over the top. And after a couple of bad series, Andrew Luck has come back and looked pretty impressive.
So Wayne, Luck, that first team for the most part, still out there on the field as we approach the 4-minute mark of the 2nd quarter. And that one's complete again to Wayne, who pays the price. But great concentration from the 12-year veteran to haul it in for another first down. Lewis on the coverage, but not before 18 more yards.
Working across the formation, and then Reggie Wayne's going to come back inside on the post route here, and this is pure timing. Really didn't fool anybody. Keenan Lewis was all over the play, but when you have that kind of timing that usually doesn't happen between a rookie and a veteran in the 2nd preseason game, looked pretty impressive.
1st and goal from the 7 as Wayne's got 6 catches for 74 yards already. On the ground of Ballard, fighting for the goal line down to the 1, where it'll be 2nd down and goal. Sean Spence brought him down.
You know, this is a completely different looking offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts. They used to be more of a sort of finesse team, and now under Bruce Arians, they're coming off the ball, and Dwayne Allen, number 83, the big tight end, just basically buried his guy on the block. This is a new style. You didn't see this last year with all the Colts offensive linemen. They are a new look, new style of offense, and it's been working.
That's A.Q. Shipley in the backfield, number 62 for
Timeout.
the Colts,
Pittsburgh.
as the Steelers call a
That's the first of the
timeout.
half.
Had a nice walk and dinner last night, Chris, in the area, and went to the same restaurant that Bruce Arians and Andrew Luck were at earlier in the evening. Arians taking his quarterback out to dinner. Arians 8 years with the Steelers, 5 as the offensive coordinator, but now with the Colts.
Yeah, but if I know Bruce, Andrew picked up the check.
Well, I think I asked Andrew, and he said Bruce got it.
Really?
8th play of the drive coming up, 2nd and goal from the 1. Whistles come in on the play as Ballard carries it close to the line.
Steelers had extra guys on the field. They had 2 guys trying to run off late. Pretty unusual after a timeout to make that kind of mistake. Of course, they had a different formation when they left the field, had their offensive lineman A.Q. Shipley in the backfield, and came out.
Play. Too many men on the field. Pittsburgh. 12 men on the field. Number 28. Half the distance to the goal. 2nd down.
There they are, trying to escape.
Yeah, but there's no escaping that one.
How about this NFL replacement crew on top of things today, although that was pretty obvious. 2nd and goal. Maybe about a foot. Ballard trying to get over the top, but he's stuffed back. Ballard just went the opposite direction after Ryan Baker nailed him. Rookie out of LSU.
Ryan Baker, Marshall McFadden, these guys right in here, the big guys go underneath, and here they come over the top. Well, that's a little Pittsburgh Steeler football right there. That's how you get popular around here.
Undrafted rookie Baker trying to get himself a spot. There's A.Q. Shipley in the backfield on 3rd and goal, trying to move some Steelers around as Ballard goes in for the touchdown.
Yeah, I don't think A.Q. knew who to block on that one, and
kind of went left and Ballard went
yeah,
right.
Ballard found a hole anyway. You know, those linemen, they love being in the backfield, but sometimes it's hard to figure out who to block over there. He kind of goes outside, and
that was pretty close. Coming to the line. Does his knee get down?
Well, scoring play, it's going to be reviewed anyway. You don't have to challenge it at this point.
That's Marshall McFadden.
It's down, but that's certainly not conclusive. You can't see where the line is, but you can say his knee was down, so you can get a little feel. If you had that's pretty close, but you couldn't overturn it based on that.
The previous play is under review.
So we'll take another look and see if Ballard got in.
Right down the line, so we know the knee hit there. Can't really see the football there, though. But we know the ball is in the left arm. I mean, you can piece it together. You're allowed to take all the evidence and play detective and piece it all together. But it's got to be.
What's the verdict?
Clear. You know, the verdict is there's not enough evidence. I hate to say it, but at least based on what I saw.
And one of the new wrinkles in the stadiums of NFL venues this year is that they feed the video to the Jumbotron, so the fans here have the same exact look that the officials are looking under the hood.
Okay, so you can take from this angle. His knee's going to be down right there. Now if you could somehow take from the other angle and see that the ball in his left arm was never across the plane, when you see that little bounce off the knee, I guess, let's see. You can't really say. I just don't think you can overturn that.
If you just had Morty Ivy out of the obscuring Ballard there, you might be able to tell by that angle. That's certainly the best angle to look at. But Ballard continues to wait to see if his score would potentially tie it up here.
My gut feeling is that he wasn't across the line, but I don't think there's evidence to overturn it. I know what Vic Ballard's voting for. Chuck Pagano getting a little taste of all the replay stuff.
Upon further review, the runner's left knee was down at the 1-yard line. It'll be 4th down. The clock will start on my whistle.
So no touchdown. That was on 3rd and goal from the 1, so it's going to be 4th.
Wow, they put that thing all the way back to the 1-yard line. All right. I don't want to be a replacement official, so there's no way that ball was back that far, though.
Yeah, they got it spotted just inside the 1 on 4th and goal. Steeler fans wake up, and we have reached the 2-minute warning. So the Colts going to tie it up when we come back. Andrew Luck and the Colts offense, 4th and goal from just about the 1-yard line. And the fake to Ballard, and Luck slides in. Touchdown is the indication.
Now you have to be careful, because if you slide, the ball's down where you start to slide. This is an interesting call here. Where does he start this slide, and where is the ball when he does? I think they're going to get a good long look at this one too.
Wow.
Boy. I mean, it is where you start to slide. There, that ball is not across the line. That makes me 0 for 2.
Wow, what a night for the.
It's not where you finish the slide. It is where the ball is, not where your feet are. Where the ball is when you start that slide.
Replay booth says it was a touchdown, and they decided that in a hurry.
Well, that looks like the beginning of a slide, and I would.
So the touchdown stands, and we're tied at 14.
Yeah, and the replay officials are not replacement officials, and believe me, they know more than I do about it, but I know what the rule is on that one. I know wherever you start to slide, it's where the ball is, so that was at least close.
That came quickly, but in the end, Luck leads him down for the score. As the knee down there in the beginning of the slide.
I think you could even make the point the knee was down and wasn't in the end zone. Yeah, you know, it's preseason, and they wanted to see a good game too. We wanted to see tie scores in preseason and quarterbacks throwing around and Troy Polamalu blitzing off the edge. We like all that stuff.
So with 1:56 left, Pat McAfee sends it into the end zone, where Chris Rainey comes out about 4 yards deep. And he's brought down short of the 15-yard line, Levon Brazil. Well, besides McClellan on defense, one of the talks of the Steeler camp was the 5th-round draft pick out of Florida, Rainey, who caught a 57-yard touchdown pass against the Eagles in his debut last week. Very, very quick, smart, and tough. And you talk to Ben Roethlisberger and all the coaches. They'll look at the numbers of Rainey while a Gator.
There you go. Yeah, look at all the block punts. 6 block punts, an SEC record. And he is a new look back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get into that a little bit.
Baron Batch is in the backfield for Charlie Batch.
Ball start. Offense. Number 66. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
And the #1 draft pick out of Stanford with a movement.
Yeah, but they like him. They're not going to tell him yet, but they really like him. They think DeCastro is going to be a star player in this league, but they like to torture you around here a little bit before they let on that you're going to be in good shape. They're going to make you earn every nickel of it.
How about the way Tomlin was saying that DeCastro came on in a big way the last 8 or 9 days of camp, as Batch trying to spin his way to the 10-yard line. It's bottled up. And Batch is back after an ACL tear 2 weeks into his rookie camp last year.
Yeah, and he's a smaller back too. And so for Todd Haley, you know, it's not all about. Used to be Pittsburgh Steelers backs had to weigh at least 225 pounds. They didn't want them because they had to pass protect and they had to run hard, and it's a power running game. And now with Todd Haley, one of the things that he would like to do is use some of these guys not as blockers as much as getting out of the backfield as quick receivers, letting Ben have an outlet receiver so that he can get the ball out a little bit quicker.
On 2nd and 14, Batch avoids the pressure. Batch to Batch. Close to the 20. That's still well short of the first down, under the minute mark left in the half. Charlie Batch from Steel Valley High School, home of the Iron Men, and one of the real loyal Steelers throughout the years.
Yeah, and the reason he's still a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite having been here for 11 seasons, only Tom Brady's been with his team longer than that, is that he's 5-2 when he starts. He gets the job done. Last year he was 1-0 when he started. And he's a guy that can sit on the bench and not play and not practice, because the backup quarterbacks, they don't get any practice time. Ben Roethlisberger takes 99% of the snaps.
And not grumble about it.
And not grumble about it. And then all of a sudden Ben's down and he's got to go in and he wins football games.
Yeah, he led the team to that 27-0 win over St. Louis in Week 15 last year, subbing for Ben, and as you mentioned, 5-2 as a starter for Pittsburgh. Signed a 1-year deal, and here he is at the age of 37, still alive and well in the NFL. 3rd and 6. Batch going down the sidelines to Emmanuel Sanders. Joe Lefege right there in the coverage.
Well, we called that a business decision.
You didn't want to go up for that.
Emmanuel Sanders on the outside, going to go in this cover 2 hole, and he knows Joe Lefege is coming. And yeah, sometimes those arms just won't go up in the air. I don't know what it is. I think it's called intelligence, and Charlie Batch got a little intelligence from Ricardo Matthews as well.
So the Steelers punted away. T.Y. Hilton calls for the fair catch at about the 34-yard line with 42 seconds left. And out comes Andrew Luck as promised. Chuck Pagano said he would play the entire first half, and he comes out for what would appear to be his final series. There's a quarterback comparison, and talking about how the Colt Brain Trust was really thinking over the decision, and maybe it wasn't as clear-cut as a lot of people thought, but there's the preseason comparison so far between Luck and RG3. And there is Ryan Grigson, the new general manager for the Indianapolis Colts. New GM, new head coach, new coordinators, and all sorts of veterans exiting the Colts scene. And as Donald Brown close to first down yardage for Luck as the clock ticks with 30 seconds to go in the opening half.
You could hear Bruce Arians on the sideline going, get upfield, get up there, come on, get the offense up there.
Second and short. Luck fires for first down yardage to LeVon Brazil. 5'11", 91-pound rookie out of Ohio, 6th-round pick.
You know, it was interesting talking to Bruce Arians and Clyde Christensen, and they're saying, you know, Luck is ready to run the Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger 2-minute offense all the time now. He said, but all my other coaches and the players are going, whoa, you know, we're ready to speed it up. We're ready to go. We have an understanding, and Luck can remember everything. But remember, there's a lot of young guys, a lot of young receivers out here on this football team. And even Reggie Wayne admitted, you know, I've got to figure this out. I've been in one offense my whole life. And so, you know, look at Andrew. He's directing traffic. That was the other thing Christensen said. He said they put one of those microphones on him one day in practice, one of those deals. He said the thing I didn't know was that there was actually, you know, an ability to watch what he was looking at, but also hear what he was saying. He said this guy comes off as this happy-go-lucky guy until he gets in the huddle, and then he's an animal.
Well, Luck credits his coach, Jim Harbaugh, at Stanford for running what he called a pro type of atmosphere. And that pass complete. In fact, Luck said he felt more prepared going from the college ranks to the pros than he did from high school to college. And he downs it with 1 second left. A little quick clock management there with no timeouts left.
Yeah, I think they were trying to rush the kicker out on the field, or the kicker thought he was supposed to rush out on the field, and all of a sudden he had to get back off the field, and it almost cost him.
So Adam Vinatieri has come on for a half-ending field goal attempt. There's Vinatieri.
Yep. And he just made
just by the last fraction of a second. 53-yard attempt for the veteran Vinatieri. He's got some good leg in it, and it's inside the right upright to end the opening half. So after Pittsburgh took a 14-0 lead, back come the Colts and Andrew Luck to take the lead at the half. Sweezen's kick to open the second half. Well into the end zone as we check in with Michelle Tafoya.
Well, Dan, I spoke with Chuck Pagano at halftime, and he told me he liked the resiliency he saw out of Andrew Luck. He said Luck has amnesia when it comes to things like the mistakes he made, like that pick six, and that he is an unflappable player. He thought his team took a good shot from the Steelers and still came out to take the lead. And as for Mike Tomlin, he wants to see more physical Steelers-type football in all three phases of the game, and in particular more consistency on defense, even though he liked some of the big plays he got.
So Luck on the sideline, and there's Drew Stanton, backup quarterback for the Colts. The give to Vic Ballard. Stanton was one of those moves, Chris, that Ryan Grigson made after Tim Tebow arrived in New York Jets camp. Drew Stanton said, that wasn't the plan. I'm not planning on being the number 3 quarterback. So he was moved here to the Indianapolis Colts and is the backup to the NFL top pick.
Yeah, but just because he's on the team now and the number 2 guy doesn't mean he has to be. He has to show something out here tonight, because the Colts will always have the first right on any player waived. So there are going to be a lot of players to choose from before all the cuts are made.
Ballard with a carry again. Stanton out of Michigan State, spent the first 5 years in the Detroit organization, and now trying to make his mark for the Colts.
Well, Cameron Hayward right here, first-round pick from a season ago, plays that one just about perfectly. Gets a little help from the other side as well. That's Sean Spence, the 3rd-round pick from this season.
So on 3rd and 4, Stanton trying to move out of the pocket, being chased, and incomplete down the sidelines.
That wasn't a bad throw, though. I thought when I saw the throw, unless I'm mistaken, that Chris Adams had a chance to make that play. Maybe not. Maybe it was just got underneath him.
So on 4th and 4, Chris Rainey will await the Pat McAfee punt. Stanton had a pretty good week last week in his debut, going 8 for 11. But again, that was a 38-3 roll over the Rams in the Colts preseason opener. McAfee blocked. And a scramble at the 10-yard line. Morty Ivy got in to block the punt. Second-year player, free agent out of West Virginia, Ivy right in on McAfee.
Morty Ivy right here. And that is not much of a block by Jeremy Ross. Of course, you've got a wide receiver trying to take on a linebacker, and maybe schematically they do that a little bit differently next time.
So Batch is in as the block punt will set up the Steelers' 1st and goal right on the 10. Jericho Cotry in motion to the near side. And the give is to Batch, who gets a couple, and a flag comes in.
Holding. Offense. Number 68. 10-yard penalty. Still 1st down.
Kevin Beacham, 7th round rookie draft pick out of SMU.
Yeah, not much doubt. It looked like Beacham slipped just a little bit on the play, and when he did, really had no choice, reached out and grabbed and got the penalty. There's some holding calls that are easier when the umpire is standing behind the huddle like they are now. And there are some holding calls that they simply can never see anymore when they're not standing behind the defense.
So back outside the 21st and goal. And again to Batch, who goes right up the middle for a few. We'll bring up 2nd and goal.
Try and give you as many looks at the top pick to Castro as we can here. Not a bad initial push, just got Drake Nevis kind of got off of him fairly quickly and got back into play. They had to upgrade this offensive line, though. They really did. And there's Ivy, who came up with the punt block. But that was the weakness. Obviously, the Steelers knew it. They addressed it with their first couple of picks. And now they just have to hope that Mike Adams and David DeCastro work out.
Batch floats to his right, and that is complete to number 48, David Paulson, who was another player that Tomlin and the coaches were high on in camp. 7th round draft pick out of Oregon, who they say has very soft hands. Tomlin really talked highly of Paulson.
Castro again here. Let's take a look. Trying to get down the field.
DeCastro, 24th pick of the draft, came out after his junior year after blocking for Andrew Luck. So ball outside the 15, 3rd and goal. Batch hanging in the pocket. Now he's chased out. He gets it down to about the 7-yard line. We'll bring up 4th and goal. Mario Addison was giving chase.
You have some really basic routes, just a simple little crossing route, all the adjustments, not a natural part of this. That's Jericho Cotry coming across the field, and Batch, he's surrounded, so just try and do the best you can. Derek Williams going the other way, and pretty good stand there by the Colts defensively. Get the turnover, backed up, the block punt, and hold him out of the end zone. Holding call helped.
So a 25-yard field goal attempt for Daniel Rapman. Back up to Sean Sweezum. Free agent, undrafted rookie out of Southern Mississippi, ties things up just into the 3rd quarter. This is Jabin Zambrano with a return for the Colts. As it just tied it up 17 all. 11:09 left in the third on Sunday Night Football.
Chuck Pagano, who worked 1 year as defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, and well, that's a good job to have. You're the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. You end up a head coach, but he said he was absolutely stunned when he got the call from the Colts Monday after they got beat in the championship game.
2nd down and 10. Stanton still in a quarterback for the Colts. Play action, steps up and complete. T.Y. Hilton with a nice grab and a nice throw as Stanton bought some time. Gain of 29.
Like Andrew Luck, that time Stanton did a good job stepping up in the pocket, avoiding the pressure. You're always going to get pressure to your outside. Your tackles are just going to push them wide. That's what Jeffrey Lincolnbach did there. Step up, and T.Y. Hilton, who I'm sure is loving making at least partial amends for that bobble interception he was a part of earlier.
So a 1st down into Steeler territory at the 45. Darren Evans is in the backfield. Stanton fakes it to him, and he's flushed out again. And before he throws it away. But back to Chuck Pagano. You know how different this whole scene could have been had there been maybe a different outcome in the AFC Championship game between the Ravens and the Patriots.
And think of how that game ended. The Lee Evans drop, the Billy Cundiff missed field goal. They lose the game in a horrible fashion. The next day, John Harbaugh says to Chuck Pagano, Indy wants to talk to you. And he said, why? They want to talk to you about the head coach. He said, you're kidding. I've been waiting 28 years for that phone call. I have no time to prepare. He flew up the next day, flying home. He said, I had no chance at this. That was horrible. They called the next day and offered him the job. So it was a whirlwind after losing the championship game.
Nice completion there to Jeremy Ross, who caught a touchdown pass last week from the 3rd-string quarterback Chandler Harnish. Got a nice gain from Stanton to Ross of 28.
And Stanton is looking pretty good here. On the outside, you're going to get Ross, who gave up the blocked punt. Just man coverage. You can tell by how far inside the cornerback is that you're going to have some room. But there's the key. If you can make a catch and make one guy miss, get a chance for a big play.
Stanton and the Colts all of a sudden down to the Steelers 17 as Darren Evans, 2nd-year free agent pickup out of Virginia Tech, with the call.
You know, and just to finish up with Chuck Pagano, as strange as it sounds, probably not the head coach if they don't lose the championship game. If they go on to the Super Bowl 2 weeks later, he said, I can't imagine the Colts were going to wait 2 weeks to name a head coach, and probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity. So right place, maybe wrong time, because it took a loss in the championship game.
All came together in a hurry as Stanton gets it to Chris Adams. But here is Pagano. I mean, he's got a chance to put his stamp on this team. And again, all sorts of new personnel around him. Coordinators new, GM new. But he says it's a chance to, what he says, build the monster. He gave players T-shirts, which on the front of the T-shirt has a horseshoe on it with the letters BTM, which stands for Build the Monster. On the back, the power rankings of all the NFL teams 1 through 32, with the Colts in the 32nd position.
Yeah.
Providing a little motivation for his players to say everybody else thinks you're going to finish dead last. Stanton's pass is incomplete at the 2, intended for Dominique Jones.
Well, you know, Reggie Wayne was talking about Chuck Pagano, who was also saying the exact same thing, that, you know, he had him as a coach at the University of Miami. And he said, my goal every day with Chuck Pagano, who was the defensive backfield coach, was to just get him to shut up. He was driving us all crazy. Every time that the defensive guys would make a play, he's chest bumping them and high-fiving and going crazy. So I was glad he calmed down a little bit as the head coach.
2nd and goal from the 6, and again Evans is down to about the 5-yard line.
You know, for the Steelers defensively, there is a big question about what's going to happen on the outside. And Adrian Robinson that time coming up on the outside. Chris Carter looks to be the outside linebacker right now if Harrison is not there. And there's Adrian Robinson, who Mike Tomlin described as a one-trick pony. He gets up the field, he can rush the passer, but he doesn't play special teams and doesn't drop. Well, he played that one pretty well.
Yeah, Robinson was all over the field against the Eagles last week. He was, couldn't wait to say, what do you think of this guy? One-trick pony. He's got to learn some other skills, and that is a touchdown pass from Stanton to Griff Whalen, number 84, who missed the first part of camp with a foot injury, but here he is, free agent, undrafted rookie out of guess where? Stanford.
Yeah, probably got the job on the heels of Andrew Luck. Here he is right here. That's all you can do in this league is ask for an opportunity, just keep working and find a way. You just keep scrambling around. And the weird part about this part of preseason is nobody knows anybody. You know, you haven't worked together on routes. It's all just kind of makeshift out there, but somehow you got to make a play and make an impression, and there you go.
Adam Vinatieri to tack on the extra point, and Indianapolis back out in front 24-17. Impressive drive by Drew Stanton. Culminates in the touchdown catch. Well, just because you hear your name said first at the NFL draft, some of the quarterback hits. Pick number 1, Manning, Vic Palmer, and another Manning. 3 Super Bowl titles between those Mannings. And then you've got the not so hits, the misses, Couch, Carr, and Jamarcus Russell, and we're still awaiting to be determined. Alex Smith, Matthew Stafford, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, who you'll see next week, and Mr. Luck.
Man, that's tough right there. Matthew Stafford threw for 5,000 yards last year. He's still in between. So he and Cam
TBD.
Newton, yeah, they're about to graduate. I'm about to put them on the graduation list.
David Gilreath is going to come out from 9 yards deep before he's wrestled out of bounds at about the 12 or 13-yard line. Gilreath sat out the Eagles game last week, but Tomlin described him as a tough player who he's given a good look at.
Yeah, they need another receiver to step up. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in this organization, and obviously they're assuming Mike Wallace comes back. They have Jericho Cotchery, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, their MVP, who made the great play earlier tonight. But they need that next guy, and they're watching Gilreath. They're hoping Gilreath can be that guy.
Charlie Batch still at the controls for the Steelers, and he gives it to Rainey, and all the shiftiness in the world isn't going to get you out of that jam.
Well, and the other guy that you've got to keep an eye on is Charlie Batch and Byron Leftwich. The number 2 quarterback position is very much in play. Of course, Leftwich had the injury last year, and so he got a chance to play last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, had a touchdown pass in that one, and now it's Charlie Batch's turn. But, you know, you think of these big-name guys, and they're just backup quarterbacks, but on the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to compete to be the number 2 quarterback.
Also going to see Gerard Johnson out of Texas A&M, who will get the 3rd turn at quarterback for the Steelers after Batch, and throws it in the direction there of Rainey. Greg Lloyd was providing some pressure on the Colts defense. Yes, Greg Lloyd, dad, the former Pittsburgh linebacker, great.
Yeah, going to come. I forget which one linebacker it was. I think right there coming through. Kind of got a free runner, but that's what Charlie Batch, see what he did there? That's exactly what Todd Haley is wanting to teach Ben Roethlisberger how to do. Okay, they got us, right? They got us on that blitz. And now just take it, move a little right. You know where the dump off is, throw it in the ground, saves the play.
Lloyd coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles in a trade with Moises Foku. And Batch complete to David Paulson again.
Get the feeling that David Paulson has a chance, don't you?
Yep.
And Mike Tomlin, you talked about it earlier. He really liked him. And it's kind of funny when Ben Roethlisberger came in and we were talking about various players, and first thing he said was, "Oh, did Tomlin hit you with the whole thing about David Paulson?" I guess he's heard it enough too. So
on 4th and 3, Drew Butler with a high kick taken at the 37 by Sambrano. Not much of a return at all. Colts continue to lead it by a touchdown. 6:52 left in the third.
Well, Peyton Manning has certainly been the story this year, and wasn't such a great throw to start things off for him last night. That one clearly got away, and got a tip pass interception here as well. But then sort of settled in and started looking a little bit like the Peyton Manning of old. You know, about a year and a half it's been since he's played a game, and unfortunately was let down on that touchdown pass. But what we know about Peyton Manning is that once he does get those mechanics of throwing the ball down and gets a feel for being back on the field, that's the Denver Broncos going to be very much a legitimate Super Bowl threat out of the AFC this year.
1st and 10 for Drew Stanton. The fake and going long downfield, incomplete. Intended for Levon Brazil as we send it back down to Michelle.
Well, standing by with Andrew Luck, your coach told me at halftime you are unflappable, that you had the sack, the pick six, and yet you came back strong. How did you evaluate what you did?
Definitely a slow start. I think, as an offense, we settled down. It's never good to throw picks, especially pick sixes. But overall, I think got better today, and that's, I think, what it's all about in the preseason.
Wait, your first pick six, it came against the Steelers, a pretty darn good defensive team. What were you thinking as you let go of that ball?
I was thinking oh no, and then that came true, and I figured, I better run and try and tackle him, but that didn't come up. But I think offensively we did a good job bouncing back and moving forward.
In terms of the Steelers' defense, you know how good they are. How did playing against them compare with your expectations?
No, I think they're every bit as good as advertised. It was a true honor to be able to come in this stadium, play against this defense, and after the rough start, I think settled down and managed to hold our own.
So in a few weeks, it's the season opener. Where do you stand right now, and where do you need to be then? I
think the next 2 preseason games will help a lot. Nowhere near ready to start, I think, a regular season opener, but getting there, on the right track.
Biggest improvement you need to make?
I think just understanding the offenses more and understanding how to pick up certain blitzes from different looks.
Hey, thanks a lot. We appreciate the time, Andrew.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
And the next preseason game, he faces the Washington Redskins. It's Andrew Luck and RG3 on the same field, guys.
Yeah, that will have a little hype to it, but pretty big eye-opening experience for Luck. He told us when we met with him, he said, I grew up watching these guys, Troy Polamalu and the great Steeler defenses, and then out there for the first time. 4th down, McAfee's punt is watched out of bounds by Marquise Mays. And that's where the Steelers will pick things up when we return. Colts up by a touchdown. Perfect night in downtown Pittsburgh, Heinz Field. Indianapolis Colts holding on to a 24-17 lead as the Steelers take over at their own 15. 6.5 left here in the third. And down goes Batch. Jerry Hughes, who by all accounts, and you talk to his fellow players, seem like he might thrive better in this new 3-4 hybrid defense.
Yeah, Jerry Hughes had 1 sack in 2 years. Here he is coming off the edge, and now he's got 3 sacks in 2 preseason games. So this whole move to the 34 defense is agreeing with him. And talking to Robert Mathis, he said he is built for this. A guy 6'3", 260 pounds. He's athletic. He can drop back in coverage. This is really a nice looking defense for him.
And again, he's a #1 draft pick out of TCU just a couple of years ago. So still trying to realize his full potential.
Somebody else trying to reach his full potential right there. Todd Haley, a guy who coming in was the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs and coming back home as Dad was one of the scouts here for many, many years, has a little Steeler stuff in his blood, and he was talking about just how much fun it is to coach again. You know, you're a head coach and you deal with the likes of us all the time, you know, and now he's back out there coaching and he's just really loving it.
3rd and 11, flag comes in. Batch goes deep downfield to David Gilreath, but again a flag thrown at the 15.
What a great play that time by Batch. He gets them to jump off sides, and instead of doing the whole rookie thing, okay, I'm going to just get rid of it, he says, I've got them. They're all bunched up. I have man coverage. I've got a free play, a free shot. I'm going to throw it as far as I can, and came up with a big one.
Well, you can see it against the Colts, so it's a 41-yard gain for Gilreath.
Gonna snap his hands, give him the hard count. Younger players jumped off sides, but that's the time you take your shot, and that's what a Charlie Batch will end up giving you. Work down the field, there's David Gilreath. They're gonna like seeing that. He didn't give up on the play. Ben's out there trying to help these replacement officials a bit.
All the way down to the Colt 45 with a 1st and 10. And Batch to Batch. You know, we touched on Todd Haley coming home, and he's, you know, this is an NFL coach for all these years. He's had to move his family from city to city. He said this transition, which felt like home, was the easiest transition that he's ever had. His oldest kid is going to the high school that he went to, where his high school football coach still coaches the team.
Yeah, and if he wants to be a head coach again, I think that working with Mike Tomlin's going to serve him well. You know, Tomlin, as far as relationships with the players, about as good as I've seen around the NFL. And Todd Haley's can be a bit of a hothead. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, between he and Ben, it's all well and good now. They're all buddies, and then they say the relationship's growing naturally. But, you know, over the years, we've seen with Todd, he can snap sometimes on the sideline, and you know, Ben's got a little temper of his own. So, and I think that was part of the reason that they brought him in here. They wanted somebody to really coach Ben hard. You know, don't always ad lib. You know, let's stay within the offense some, and it's it'll be interesting to watch this year.
On 3rd and 5, Batch trying to get the 1st down. Gilreath spins around. Another impressive catch and run by Gilreath.
But that's Charlie Batch right there. Did you hear him going lefty, lefty, lefty? What he saw was pressure coming off the left side, so he redirects his back from the right side over to the left side, and then pick up the blitz and get the completion. There you go. Back comes over. Baron Batch pick up the 1st down. Veteran quarterbacks get you out of bad plays into good plays, and that's the reason they can play till they're 90 years old.
So they pick up a 1st and 10 at the 34. Batch in his 15th year, again 37 years old.
And we're talking about, I hate to even do this to him, Todd Haley and some of the moments he's had on the sidelines over the years. There's T.O., of course, you don't get to say a lot there, but Anquan Bolden. Josh McDaniels after the game. There's his quarterback, Matt Castle. That's the kind of relationship he has sometimes with quarterbacks. So you're going to get a little bit of that fiery element. You know, Bruce Arians and Roethlisberger were best of friends.
And that is Wesley Saunders, who is able to practice, play in the preseason, despite facing a 4-game suspension for the regular season after violating performance enhancement drug policy with the NFL.
Yeah, but it won't kill him, though, because, you know, Leonard Pope comes over, and I tell you, Leonard Pope has impressed me with some of his blocking. I never thought he was that good of a blocker, but I guess once you put on a Steelers helmet, you become a blocker at tight end.
Will Johnson backed up behind the line of scrimmage by a host of Colts.
Yeah, and that Will Johnson's an interesting story, too, the fullback. Basically, they were going out to scout another player, And Will Johnson was just there kind of working out with him. He runs under 4.5 as a fullback, bench presses the house several times. And Mike Tomlin said, you know, we're going to have guys patting themselves on the back for finding this guy. He said it was pure luck. It was just absolute luck we found him. And now because of the injury to David Johnson, looks like he's going to be the starting fullback.
There's Jonathan Dwyer again. And the Steeler backfield has been decimated by injuries. Again, Isaac Redman not seen any action tonight. Rashard Mendenhall still not a part of the backfield.
Yeah, and Rashard Mendenhall coming off the PUP list, which means that he is going to have to be a part of the active roster. And I don't think anybody here thinks he's going to be ready on opening day, but they didn't want to leave him on the PUP list, which meant he couldn't play until after 6 weeks.
Yep.
So they're going to just make him inactive until he's ready to play and hope it's sooner rather than later.
A lot of key players close, Chris, to the opener. James Harrison, we talked about him. Mendenhall as Batch goes down.
Time Trey Essex had a little bit of an issue over here at the tackle position going against Jerry Brown. Getting pushed back.
So on to attempt a 39-yard field goal is Daniel Ratman. Good solid leg, splits the uprights. Free agent signee from Southern Mississippi. Makes it a 24-20 game with 11 seconds left in the third. And we've been talking a lot about who's going to be ready, who might not be ready for the Steelers opener. Here's a look at the projected opening day starters on the offensive line. Pretty much set on the right side there. Who's it going to be at left tackle? Is it going to be Max Starks? Is it going to be Mike Adams?
One of those two. It's going to be depending on if Max Starks is healthy enough. And, you know, one thing we haven't mentioned tonight really is the fact that Willie Colon, after a couple of injured seasons, only played one game, I think, in the last 2 years, but was a great right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most physical run blockers around. Well, now they've moved him to left guard, and the experiment has worked. They are really excited about what he can do from a run blocking standpoint and just enhances this power running game. Now they just hope they get some of their backs back in the lineup to take advantage of a guy like Willie Colon.
And again, all an objective to protect Ben Roethlisberger, keep him healthier through maybe the second half of his career. Just turned 30 in March. This is Sambrano coming out for the Colts. Flags fly as he gets just across the 10.
Sambrano on the return to the 12. Josh Victorian for the stop for the Steelers. Flag on the play.
And it's against the Colts. Craig Ochoa having some microphone problems.
Can you imagine getting thrown down into an NFL game as a replacement official? I admire their courage. And, you know, I'm not getting in the middle of this one. Everybody always asks me, I'm like, this is a contract negotiation. This is about money, and this is about stuff. I just hope it gets done. The regular referees are outstanding referees, and I hope they're there for opening day.
In and out of the arms of LeVon Brazil. Yeah, most of the refs have, you know, Division I experience, at least this staff has, but a lot of them don't even have that kind of experience.
But there are so many nuances to the rules, you know, that somebody told me one time there's like 83 specific rules just to special teams. So you never hear me critique a call on a special teams because I know they have all those bizarre rules out there. Troy Polamalu, he just ignores them all and goes and gets the guy with the ball.
2nd and 10 as the Colts are backed up with just 2 seconds left in the third. Stanton is going to keep it up the middle as Deji Kareem gets his first carry of the game. brings us to the end of the third quarter. Colts 24, Steelers 20. And we'll be joined by Hines Ward, the Steeler great, when we come back after these messages. Hines Ward at Hines Field in a very different kind of feeling. Has it been tough for you to watch this game? I know you talked with Chris earlier, but has it sunk in a little bit more that
a little bit?
This is your new field.
This is my new team right here. This is my new team. So I kind of get caught up saying we, but instead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I need to stop saying we. So it is a little different being up here now.
Colts just across the 10 as Stanton continues to quarterback for the Colts, and through the air incomplete. That was intended for Kyle Miller.
We made a pretty good play down there.
Yes, they did.
It is hard and it's not fair, but now you're going to be asked to make comments about your former teammates, and pretty soon they're going to start calling you Benedict Arnold up here. I've been down this road before. I know how it goes. So you've got an interesting future in front of you.
Brian Stahovich has taken over the punting duties for the Colts. Marquise Mays back deep again for the Steelers, drifting back to his 42. Whoa! He's hammered at the 41.
It's so interesting for me to watch. Reggie Wayne now in Bruce Arians' offense for the Colts is taking on your role. Describe some of this.
Four-step bang, outside step. You always got him on the move so you can get off coverage. This is a fish route. It's a read route. He has the option to go in and out. It's kind of vintage. Now, this is a little different for Reggie to get in there blocking linebackers, but he's doing an excellent job at it. And I sent him a text throughout the game. He ran wonderful routes all throughout the game. And F choice is his bread and butter. I told him F choice is get you 60 catches this year.
How'd he do blocking? You might have to show him how to hold. You're pretty good at that now.
Yes.
I think you paid off a few officials over the years. I used to have defensive guys come up to me and go, how much money does Hines Ward give these officials? Because he will grab you around the outside of the shoulders, and this is his block.
This
right
guy's
there.
all over you now. You walk in the booth and he's accusing you of paying up.
Well, I use this time during the preseason. I get the referees' waters and stuff during Gatorade time, during the television timeouts and whatnot. So I try to buy them, and hopefully they remember that during
Chris
the regular
needs
season.
a fresh water over there, by the way.
Yes,
we get a chance. We got a new quarterback in for your old team here, Gerard Johnson, and he gets hammered as he just lets it loose down the field. Johnson from Texas A&M as a flag comes in. Jerry Brown provided the hit on Johnson, who was in a battle at Texas A&M for the quarterback position a few years back with Ryan Tannehill. And Ryan Tannehill now potential starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins as he raced up the NFL draft list, was the 8th overall pick taken. Gerard Johnson injured his shoulder going into his senior year.
Offense, number 22, 15-yard penalty. Still second down.
Penalty on Rainey.
Yeah, one of the problems that you have when you are a little guy, you tend to want to cut guys. You don't want to take them on. Boy, that's a tough call right there. I don't think that Mike Adams was engaged at all. I mean, that's not a chop block. Chop block is the one guy has to be engaged, and then the other guy comes and chops his knees, and oh well.
Well, Johnson faced with a 2nd and 22, and Jason Ford, who was just signed by the Steelers this week, gets the carry. Mentioned virtually every single receiving record for the Steelers in the storied 14-year career, 5th most for one team in NFL history. That's a nice round number, 1,000 catches.
Way to go out on top, right?
There you go. And Super Bowl MVP, of course. But I tell you, the reason that I think you will be a Hall of Fame player, and I was joking with you before, but the difference that you made as a blocker in this offense.
As Johnson throws a strike down the middle of the field to Gilreath for a first down.
This Gerard Johnson stepping up here and making a play, and the guy that is making the biggest impression so far among the second half guys is David Gilreath. Already had the big play down the field. they just feel like that he's a weapon. And already I'm seeing a little bit different stuff out of Gerard Johnson, too. Last week, a little bit jumpy in the pocket, ran a bunch of the times, took some sacks. Looks much calmer in there now.
Yeah, he's a big guy, and he delivers another bullet to Justin Peel, who was just signed this week. So Johnson, his coach at Texas A&M was Mike Sherman, who just happens to be the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins in Tannehill right now. So all sorts of
just zone defenses, and of course Hines knew how to work those holes about as well as anybody. But you know, it sounds easy, but a lot of times it takes a veteran player to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Sometimes with a wide receiver, you have to be the quarterback on the field. You have to be on the same page. So when zone coverage presents itself, you got to find the holes and sit down, and hopefully you're on the same page with the quarterback.
Do you think there's a chance that Gerard Johnson could beat out Byron Leftwich or Charlie Batch for the number 3 spot? You know, money's always a factor when you have those kinds of decisions.
You know what? He has an opportunity. You know, he's young. His skill set, I mean, I'm standing out there. He's got to be 6'7", 6'8".
Oh, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
We were watching him in practice the other day.
And he's very agile, and that's something Coach Tomlin reminds me a lot of Dennis Dixon.
Yeah, but, you know, to make it in this league, you have to prove right here you can win from the pocket and make the play. I think he was sacked 3 times in the game last week, and, of course, we've been talking about it all night long, that they're really hoping these Steeler quarterbacks learn where that check down is and make a play. Mike Adams, number 76 on the edge. He's going to get the Dwight Freeney spin move, but it wasn't Dwight Freeney, it was Mario Addison coming at him. And so Mike Adams, I know he's got the bad knee and working at it out there, but really has not proven that he is ready to play left tackle for the Steelers yet.
3rd and 15, ball at the 25 of the Colts, and here's Johnson showing some mobility. A flag has been thrown, and Johnson just throws that down out of bounds. Tony Clemens in the vicinity, 7th round draft pick out of Colorado.
Yeah, and then when things start going bad, now you got to bring somebody over to help. And you've got to think that when they played Denver on opening night, you know, Von Miller and Elvis Dumerville and the great pass rushers they have out there, well, then maybe it's Max Starks. At least you've got a veteran with some experience, but will he be healthy enough to play?
Offense. Number 68, 10-yard penalty from the previous spot. 3rd down.
Call on Kelvin Beachum.
You know, the other part of that whole thing in Denver, Hines, is you go out there, you have those great pass rushers, you know the crowd's going to be going berserk, and you've got the altitude that you've got to deal with.
Correct. And it makes it tough for the tackles to really get off because you can't really hear. And so a lot of the times the tackles usually get back, and the referees are always telling the tackles to get on the line, but especially in Denver, you know, with the crowd noise, that's going to be a major disadvantage to the Steelers' offensive linemen.
Another offsides called.
Well, it is an issue. You cannot go into the regular season with a glaring hole. And I think if Max Starks is remotely healthy, he'll probably going to get the start at left tackle. Would you agree?
Yeah, because he's has the experience. It is somebody I think Coach Tomlin can put in there and be reliable and be dependable, that he can go out there and take care of these pass rushers that Denver Broncos has.
You just don't want to leave that backside of your quarterback on opening night in that kind of an environment, that vulnerable against those kind of pass rushers.
Yeah, and we know how tight Roethlisberger is with Starks. In fact, Roethlisberger wore Starks' 78 jersey when Starks was unsigned there to practice, kind of in support of his good friend, whose locker is right next to him. Good throw by Johnson to Tony Clemens.
Yeah, it's a nice difference a week can make sometimes. Gerard Johnson this time stepping up, but his eyes staying down the field. And even though they don't pick up the first down, they give themselves a chance to kick a field goal here in this situation. He looked good. He drove the team the length of the field against the Eagles for what looked like the game-winning field goal. Of course, the Eagles came back the other way. But that was impressive in a clutch situation.
43-yard field goal, hooking to the left by Daniel Ratman. We'll continue to host our new best friend Hines Ward here when we come back. booms it over the head of Zambrano. Opening moments of the fourth quarter. Colts by 1. Look at the Steelers' Ryan Clark, such a big part of that Pittsburgh defense, but not on the field in the Steelers' playoff loss to Denver because he's got a sickle cell trait, and that particular condition does not do well in altitudes. And the previous game that Ryan Clark played in Denver back in 2007 was of a crisis condition. He ended up having to stay in Denver, had his gallbladder, spleen removed, lost some 30 pounds. So we expect that Ryan Clark will not be a part of the Steelers' defensive secondary when the Steelers travel to Denver in our opener on Sunday night on September 9th.
Can you remember how frightening that was? I mean, that was a scary moment for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for all of us.
Yeah.
Offense, number 61. 10-yard penalty. Still first down.
It was, you know, coming back from that trip and Ryan having to stay in Denver to go to the emergency room. We didn't know what happened. And then to come back and find out that it could have been life-threatening. You know, you start to look at the big picture. You know, it's not worth playing in Denver if you're going to lose your life. So ever since then, Ryan hasn't played in Denver since the previous time he played there.
Yeah, and you know, and it cost the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think there's any question. The Steelers, one of the absolute best teams defensively as far as not giving up big plays. As a matter of fact, only 7 plays over 30 yards all season long. But against the Denver Broncos and Tim Tebow in the playoffs, without Ryan Clark, there were all kinds of big plays.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the quarterback of our secondary. I mean, he allows Troy to be Troy. You know, when Troy likes to line up and do a lot of different things, Ryan Clark tends to back up a little bit, maybe 10 more extra yards, so he can kind of complement Troy when he goes out and does the things that Troy do. But not having him in there is definitely going to be not good for the Steelers secondary.
Yeah, I think you can expound on that even a little bit more, that, you know, Troy Polamalu, for as great as he is, he'll see something and go, Ryan, cover me.
Correct.
You know, like Robin or something,
Yeah.
Tonto or something.
Yeah.
And he'll fly up there and make a play, and 90% of the times he's right.
Yes.
But on those 10%, if Ryan Clark's not out there, which he wasn't in that game,
Correct.
the Steelers pay a big price.
Yeah, Troy can't be Batman without Robin. You know, he is his Robin. He allows Troy to be able to be line up at the line of scrimmage, to blitz when he wants to. And all they do is just communicate. So when Troy goes and does what he does, you know, Ryan backs up a little bit and gives Troy that freedom to do that.
We got Chandler Harnish in the game for the Colts. 3rd and long, and he completes it to Griff Whalen. So you had Andrew Luck, the #1 player picked in the NFL earlier, and you've got the last player pick, dubbed Mr. Irrelevant, Harnish, with a big connection there.
Well, Griff Whalen's getting it done tonight in here. Just got jammed off the line of scrimmage, but kept fighting. Had the touchdown earlier, makes a big catch here, takes a tough hit and stays up. So basically everybody's completed a pass to Griff Whalen tonight except his Stanford teammate, Andrew Luck.
And going back to Ryan, it devastated Ryan not being out there in the playoff game.
12 players on defense. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Yeah, and I've got a new thing that I'm never going to say about Ryan Clark. He said to me, you got 12 guys out there on the field. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That was 12th. I saw him on the practice field the other day, and he said, so why every time you talk about me, do you have to say he's not the fastest guy in the world, but, and I always say nice things about him because I really do have a lot of respect for him as a player. So now I'm just going to say he's one of the fastest guys in the league. You know, Ryan Clark, he's a speedster. I think he could take on Usain Bolt, and I'd feel really good about it.
You know what? I think Ryan Clark plays a lot of Madden game, and he looks at his statistics on the Madden.
Right.
And he's very disappointed. He wants to call the Madden people and wonder why his speed isn't where it needs to be.
Well, let me tell you, I know firsthand everybody in the league is upset with their speed rating in the Madden game. Trust me. I did that a few years, and I used to hear all about it. Like, what am I going to do?
Harnish has the Colts on the move here a little bit. Darren Evans tries to turn the corner. As you take a look at Mike Tomlin, we've talked about Antonio Brown getting a contract extension. Tomlin with a 3-year contract extension through 2016. He's already led the Steelers to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them. So a great record and still going strong. We talked to him. He gave us one of his Tomlinisms. Hines, he said, it's all about stacking up Lombardis. When I asked him, you pinch yourself sometimes, you think about what you've done. He goes, about stacking up Lombardis.
That's just how Coach Tomlin is, too. You know, it's great to win the Super Bowl, but he's always thinking about the next Super Bowl, and that's what you love about him.
But he has a way, you don't have to guess how he feels. Me either. He's come after me a few times, too. So if he's got an issue with you, he's going to tell you straight up. What is it called? The news? The Daily News?
The Daily News.
Describe the Daily News.
The Daily News is something that doesn't go out in public, but only stays within the team confinement. So when you get put on the news, it's an in-house news. You know, he's not calling anyone out, but he's holding everybody accountable for their actions.
Another flag comes in on 3rd and 11.
And it's like the nightly news, right? Not a lot of good news.
Offense, number 8.
You don't want to be a part of the Steeler in-house
Yeah,
news.
you don't want to have your name on the Tomlin
not
news.
good headlines.
No, a lot of houses burning down on the nightly news. Trust me. But I think as a player, as long as it goes across the board and everybody's getting the equal treatment, you respect that from a head coach. Because if somebody's going off on their own, it's not good.
As a player, you do respect that. You don't want one guy to be treated one way. Oh,
no, good pass by Harnish to Whalen again, who's hauling him in.
Oh, I love seeing this. Can you remember your rookie year? And like every game is just so scary. Every play is so important. And Griff Whalen, watch this move here. The slot receiver.
Great double
Going to go
move.
up, little out cut, back inside, go up high over the middle. Know you're going to take a hit. Tell you what, he might be creeping up there.
Yes, and that's what it's all about. You just want to come out and make plays during the preseason. He's definitely making a name for himself tonight.
Harnish from tiny Bluffton, Indiana native, small town. Painted his bedroom walls Colts blue and white with Peyton Manning posters.
Yeah,
he was 10 when Manning was drafted. He signed with Northern Illinois, taking the Huskies to 4 bowls and their first Mid-American Conference title in some 28 years, and here he is playing in the one-time team of his boyhood hero and idol.
And Mr. Irrelevant.
That's right.
How about that? They took a quarterback with the first pick in the draft, Andrew Luck, and took a quarterback with the last pick.
And what a party that is that you get to go to in Newport Beach. That one's picked off. So Harnish with an interception as Josh Victorian grabs it out of the air to halt the Colts drive. Look at Greg Mineski, the first-year Colts defensive coordinator, as he tries to implement this Ravens defense that Chuck Pagano orchestrated so successfully in his years in Baltimore. 1st and 10 for the Steelers. Just across the 30. Incomplete. And what do you think of the implementation? So many new things for the Indianapolis Colts, a new offensive coordinator and this new defense, Hines.
You know what? The Ravens defense is all about applying pressure to the quarterback by mass confusion, by overloading a bunch of guys to one side and blitzing the other, or having 7 interior guys standing up, walking around, and all they really want to do is create matchup problems, and hopefully an offensive lineman may miss a block or whatnot. And speaking to Freeney earlier during pregame, I said, you know what? This defense will allow you to get on one-on-one matchups with you and the running back, and I take my money on you all day over running back blocking you.
Well, that's what they were saying, that, you know, these guys are so used to rushing 4 and playing that cover 2 behind it. So Freeney and Mathis, almost every player were getting double teamed either by chipping by a back or a tight end being over them. And what they're convincing them of is, okay, occasionally, yes, you're going to drop back into coverage, but occasionally they're going to mess up a protection, and you're going to come off the edge, and it's just going to be a running back there to block you. And he said, typically, whenever I'd see a running back blocking me, I'd go, oh, this is a trick play. This is a screen. This is something weird here.
Nice grab by Gilreath, tight roping, going way up in the air to grab the Gerard Johnson pass. He has been impressive tonight.
Yeah, he had to step up. This was his night. They were going to give Gilreath a full look, and he's taken advantage of it. You know, I think the Steelers probably more than anything else appreciate that second effort right there.
Yes. That's something that catches the eye of all the coaches. I mean, just trying to make a great catch. Not only don't go out of bounds, step out, but try to convert the first down. He did that.
Gilreath, the leading receiver for the Steelers, 4 catches, 78 yards. And here is Jason Ford in the open field.
Looked like the mini bus right there.
He did.
Didn't practice until Friday. Ford again signed on Tuesday, but rips off a 22-yard gain.
End up pulling the guard around and getting up on Greg Lloyd and popping it right through the hole. The old Pittsburgh Steelers power play. We've seen it 1,000 times.
And Ford spins out of another potential stop.
He does look like the bus, doesn't he?
Second coming?
I mean, I'm not saying he's Jerome Bettis, but he looks like the bus running a little bit. Oh, no, now he's down. Boy, this has been a rough year to be a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Beautiful little spin move.
He's ducking his head. Oh.
Never saw it coming, a hit in the back. So while they attend to Ford, we'll take a short break. Be right back. Your old city looking pretty good tonight, Hines.
Man, Pittsburgh has the greatest skyline of all the cities that I've been to. It's just a unique place and a special place, especially for football on Sunday nights.
Been pretty good for baseball this year, too.
Pirates are looking
Glenn
good.
Hurdle and those guys, a little scuffling a little bit here lately, but pretty good.
Great place to watch a ball game with the downtown skyline in the outfield. So with 4:02 left, Steelers trailing by 1. And Johnson at the controls. Chris Rainey, they fake it to him. Johnson rolls out and takes a hit at the sideline. Clock rolls under the 4-minute mark.
It's turned into a pretty good ball game here. We're getting Gerard Johnson for the second straight week now with a chance to open up here. Johnson came out here on this bootleg, and I initially was thinking, oh boy, he's got the edge. Colts close quickly.
Push it.
And here's Rainey right up the middle, close to a first down. He is tough. He's taken some hits tonight, and he's gotten back up.
Yeah, but the news on that one was that Gerard Johnson saw a little hole in the defense, checks to a run, and picks up 9 on second down.
And wants to sneak it across for the first down, close to the 15-yard line. Appeared like he got it.
Boy, that's impressive, though, when you see a young quarterback make an audible and have that thing pop in there for 9 yards.
Yeah, anytime you get up to the line and you got a two-way play and you check into a positive play and get yourself out of a negative play is always a plus for your offense.
Well, Tomlin wanted to get a good look at Gerard Johnson. Closing moments of this game. Maybe Johnson can get a potential game-winning drive here. Still plenty of time left for the Colts to come back if they do get it in. Rainey inside the 15 down to the 14.
But they're also milking this clock too, you know. I mean, it's nice when you go on these, what do you guys call them, the 4-minute offense or whatever at the end of the game. Yeah, you want to kick the game winner, but you'd also like to not leave the Colts at a chance to go the other way.
And that's something Coach Tomlin really prides himself on, is having a great 4-minute offense to end the game so we don't give the ball back to the opposing offense so they can go down there and potentially score.
Let's go back to that audible by Gerard Johnson. It's late in the game, a lot of young players in there, and you heard a couple of whats. It's good when your quarterback knows what to do, but everybody else has to know too. What?
It's typical training camp. There's a lot of what that goes on the field, but you know what? He did a great job of getting him out of a bad play and checking him into a good play, and went for a positive game.
2:20 left, 2nd and 9 for Johnson. Doing some more calling at the scrimmage before Rainey dives inside the 10.
You know, Hines, did you ever think you'd see backs the size of Chris Rainey in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, right?
Well, the last one we had was Willie Parker, but he was just all speed. But, you know, Rainey's just a tough guy. I mean, he's a little guy, but he sticks his nose up in there and comes out somehow, some way with positive yards. So he's definitely going to make an impact to the Steelers offense.
You know, unbelievably, when we were talking about Roethlisberger about him, he said when they were talking about, you know, and I knew that they had drafted him, my first concern obviously was, can he block anybody? You know, this guy doesn't even weigh 200 pounds, and now he's got to go out there against these huge 260-pound outside linebackers we were just talking about and try and make a block. But Roethlisberger said, really, other than Isaac Redman, he's probably the best blocker. He can't believe how he sticks his nose in there and makes some of those blocks. And Rainey was telling us at practice, he said, yeah, but they give you a headache, though. It's, you know, 190 pounds, they're not fun.
So Rainey takes a breather. And Jason Ford is in the backfield.
Mini bus.
Yeah, we'll see if the bus, nope, they fake it. Johnson comes rolling around again looking for first down yardage, and he's down to the 1-yard line. 1st and goal, Steelers.
Awesome. And not only that, he got the first down, but he didn't go out of bounds. He specifically saw out there that he could have had to fight to get the first down marker, but then tucks it up and keeps that clock going to the 2-minute warning.
Steelers poised to push it across. 2-minute warning here in the Steelers preseason opener. Trailing by 1. They've got a 1st and goal. Gerard Johnson has Jason Ford, who's already been dubbed the mini bus by Hines Ward, in the backfield.
What do you do here?
You give it to Ford and you get maybe a loss of 1.
You know, but I mean, like we saw in the Super Bowl, there's a strategy here that says let them score, leave yourself a timeout and 2 minutes to work with, and try and go match it the other way. Because right now a field goal beats you, and they can basically just sort of milk this clock down.
As the Colts
spend
their last time out.
They should have just let them score, probably.
That's a tough one, too. Jerry Brown going to come off the edge right here again. He's had a pretty nice game. We've called his number a few times. Comes down tight off of that down block and makes the play.
13th play that was of this drive. It started from Pittsburgh's own 31. So about 6 minutes chewed up on the clock.
In Pittsburgh, they never mind taking a lead and letting their defense play, though, do they?
No.
And again, Ford goes nowhere. Backed up by Jerry Brown.
Well, at least on the goal line, we know that Jerry Brown is going to be a factor. Again, it's just going to be the down block. Get down blocks here, and he's just going to hug it tight right off of there and make the play in the backfield.
A couple of teammates going there. Former teammates, I should say, going head-to-head from Illinois, both undrafted rookies. Jerry Brown and Jason Ford.
Now, how much do you trust Gerard Johnson? You're going to let him throw the ball here, an incompletion. Stop the clock.
He's got Chris Rainey to his right. out of the shotgun. 3rd and goal, gives it to Rainey, looking for a block, looking for some daylight, can't find much. Gets it back inside the 5. But that'll bring up 4th and goal under a minute left and running.
And now you go knock in basically an extra point here. And you're going to leave the Colts, maybe 25 seconds, something like that to work with going the other way. No timeouts. In a weird way, that defensive stand by the Colts may have actually worked against them. But we're going to tell a bunch of kids trying to make the team. Sure. Jerry Brown's going to come play. Yeah, they'd probably rather see him play defense than worry about who wins the game.
Wayne,
And the clock stopped with 23 seconds left as the Steelers take their first timeout. And we mentioned Jerry Brown, free agent, undrafted rookie out of Illinois. Check out this career, Pat. This is what this time of year, going through camp, fighting, persevering. This is what it's all about. Signed by the Colts after the Sharks, Tiger Cats of the CFL, and the always dangerous Talons of the AFL. Signed by the Colts and trying to make his way on a roster somehow, some way. This is Daniel Ratman, who has already made field goals 25, 39, 43. This is just a 22-yarder that just gets over the upright. Chuck Pagano is up to say, did that get over? Barely.
I think that was Brown again.
Well, Brown and Josh Chapman jumped over the top of the Steelers' offensive line and got the block. They didn't block it enough. Little leapfrog over the top.
Just a piece. Ty Inseki, 65, was coming in. Or actually, no, Inseki not there, a part of the trio of Colts. Wow. Jason Shirley.
You know, that's what you get the flip side of that. When you say, oh, this field goal is automatic, there's no such thing.
But you like to see the effort out of those guys to try to go up and, it's 4th quarter. You want to go up and make a play, and they almost did it.
I've got to think Chuck Pagano, regardless of how this one comes out, is going to be pretty happy. His quarterback came in here a little shaky early on. Hey, all of us that came to Pittsburgh the first time to play a little shaky, but he settled down. He was strong-minded and came back and made some nice plays.
And that's something you can build on. During the preseason, you take all the positives that through the game and you look at all the negatives. You want to work on the negatives, but to walk away and what they did tonight, you can grow from that.
Once again, a look at Luck's night, Chris.
Yeah, he stared down a pick 6 there. But started coming back and making some nice throws in tight windows. Got the blitz read off there with his mate Kobe Fleener. Dropped one into Reggie Wayne. Had a secret for somebody. A little Hail Mary time maybe here.
20 seconds left. Steelers up by 2. Harnish incomplete. Clock stopped with 15 seconds left.
Everybody always tries to do this. You get in the lineup in the Hail Mary formation and they want to run the comeback off of it, and the defense goes, oh boy, I've never seen that before. And
as you look at the numbers for Luck, just so smooth sailing last week in the win over the Rams. He was tested tonight by a Steeler defense, came back after the pick in his second preseason game of his career.
But you see him jumping each week. You see some development each week.
Harnish, Mr. Irrelevant, going downfield. That was Zambrano down, number 85. 10 seconds. So, Hines, we're going to see you down the road the next couple of games. football here on NBC. Thanks for stopping by, and great to see you.
Man, this is fun. Definitely a big honor to be a part of the new NBC team.
Hope Chris didn't scare you away or anything.
No,
You'll
Chris.
be all right?
I look up to Chris. He's the best of the best. And
I was just joking when I did that block on you too. I just want you to know I've seen what you've done to Ed Reed and Ray Lewis over the years. I don't want to offend you too much.
I have fun tonight.
Harnish almost picked off. Clock stopped with 5 seconds. So maybe one more.
Yeah, now you get the circus play. You get the handoff and the lateral, and because now even if you catch a Hail Mary, clock runs out anyway. So now you got to go the distance. So don't know if they've got it in yet or not, but this is where the
yeah, I'm sure they haven't worked on the circus play where you keep pitching it back to everybody. So.
Tried the lateral. Yep, gets it done once. That's Whalen with it. He gets rid of it. Jeremy Ross has it. And Ross back to Harnish. Mr. Irrelevant.
Harnish looked like he had rugby skills.
Zambrano's got it, and that will finally do it. So a pretty good play by the Colts to end it. But it's Pittsburgh 26, Indianapolis 24. Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger started it. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers win for the first time this preseason.